All right, welcome. Good to have everybody back in here. It's great to be back in here again for another season. So certainly looking forward to coming in here with you all every Tuesday here for the next 3-4 months, I guess. But good day today. Got back on the practice field. Our players had a couple days off. Sunday we met after the scrimmage. Yesterday was their day off, so we hadn't been on the field since Saturday night, so it was good to get back out there this morning. Had a good, productive practice. Going back to last Saturday, I thought it was a great second preseason game in our minds out there in the stadium. Really pleased. A lot of good in all three phases that we saw out there, and then certainly a lot to improve and correct as well. But it was a really efficient night, and felt like we made some really good strides as a team from Saturday the week before to Saturday night as well. Injury-wise, just a few updates. Chad Terrell tore his ACL. That's his third, unfortunately, in his career, so he'll be out for the season. Really, really hate it for that young man. And we, told the team he'll still continue to have a role on this team, and got so much respect for him, a guy that is in his 6th year in this program, I believe, that had been through, this is now his third ACL, that has come back from 2 ACLs, accepted a position change during spring practice, really excelled in that role as a tight end for us, had a good preseason, and had put himself in position to play and have a role on the field on this year's team. So certainly hate it for him, but have so much respect for Chad and the way that he's battled to put himself in position to play. And we talked about it in front of the team, the respect that we have for him and the impact that he can have going forward, the fighter that he is and all that as well. So he's still heavily involved with our team and has a role without a doubt, but just won't be playing on Saturdays for us, this upcoming season. And then other than that, really nothing new. Kai Kroger and Christian Beal-Smith are our two, most concerned about guys, if you will. But here we are on Tuesday, a week and a half before we play, and optimistic that both those guys will be out there against Georgia State next Saturday night. But if not, we'll be ready to roll. But they're the only two guys that are question marks at this point from a personnel standpoint. Going into the first game injury-wise, we are in our mock game week right now, so we got a lot of new faces, obviously, that weren't here last year. So this is a great week for those guys to learn how we practice during the week. So what we did on Sunday a couple days ago is exactly what we would do on a normal Sunday, other than we just didn't go out on the practice field. Yesterday was their day off, like it will be during the season. Today was a Tuesday practice, so they can learn how we practice and meet on Tuesdays. Tomorrow will be a normal Wednesday. Thursday will be a normal Thursday, just so when we do it next week for real, everybody understands how we practice and what we get done and what we accomplish or try to accomplish each and every day. So we're introducing Georgia State a little bit this week, but we're not 100% into Georgia State. There's a lot of other things that we're trying to continue to work on, some issues from last year, just making sure they don't pop up next year from a schematic standpoint that opponents presented us, problems they presented, a lot of position battles that we're still trying to figure out how those are going to shake out. So a lot that's happening this week before we totally get into Georgia State next week. But like I said, we are introducing it and got a lot that we have to get done this week. Continuing a lot of great momentum from a recruiting standpoint over the weekend, and will continue to be a major point of emphasis for us, obviously, going forward, but love where we are from a recruiting standpoint and excited about seeing so many of these prospects back on campus next Saturday night as well. So I was looking at it yesterday, and a lot of the teams that we compete against and recruit against, Clemson, they don't have a home game next Saturday. Georgia doesn't have a home game next Saturday. North Carolina does not have a home game next Saturday. Tennessee doesn't have a home game next Saturday. So recruits, if you want to come see a college football game next Saturday night, Columbia, South Carolina is a fantastic place to be on a Saturday night, and really look forward to seeing a lot of you guys in Columbia when we kick things off next Saturday. So with that, be glad to take any questions that you guys have.
Shane, a couple for you. With Chad, is it a medical situation, or will he be able to come back next year?
That's something we're looking into, David. One, I think Chad has to decide if he wants to go down that route and pursue that. And then also from an NCAA and eligibility standpoint, there's some things that we're trying to look into, get clarified to see if that's a possibility.
And also, have you talked with Mark Stoops since last week that whole thing happened?
Question 2. You had to the layup on the first one before you came in with that one, huh? I have not. I have not talked to Coach Stoops. No, I saw the quote from SEC Media Days on Marty and McGee. I saw the statement that he made last week. I appreciate Coach Stoops saying that it wasn't directed at me. Like I said on an interview the other day, we have great respect for. I have great respect for Mark and his program and the Kentucky program. I know when the basketball coach at Kentucky made the comment that he did about the football program, that Mark said that he stays in his lane, so I can't imagine he would have gotten out of his lane to direct a shot at me. And I said it the other day in an interview, Mark was very complimentary of our program before we played them last season. And in fact, 2 or 3 of his assistant coaches came up to me during pregame warmups last year to comment on the culture of our program and how impressed they were with it just from watching videos on social media and things like that. So it is what it is, and he's got his program to worry about, and I've got mine to worry about. But no, my respect for him is still high in that program as well.
Shane, you mentioned going into this week just about some of those position battles. I know all 22 were up for grabs, but as you get into this mock game week, what are some of those position battles that you're really going to be kind of focusing in on?
That wide receiver group, how that kind of shakes out, for sure. All those guys are gonna play in regards to the guys that we're talking about consistently at wide receiver. But how exactly does it shake out going into next week? Who's going to be the third quarterback between Luke and Spencer? Those guys are our clear-cut number 2. We know DK can play quarterback, but is it Colton? Is it Tanner Bailey? Is it Braden Davis? Is it Jalen Daniels? We're trying to figure out who is going to be that third guy going into the season as well. There's a lot of them. We have depth on the defensive line. How does that top 6 end up shaking out? The safety position. R.J. Roderick and Devontae Reed have been our top 2 guys throughout the preseason, but what does it look like behind them? What happens at the place kicker situation with Herrera and Jeter? That's one. So I think there's a lot of them. You've been listening because you said all 22 are still up for grabs and competing. I like that. Phil made that mistake the other night in the press conference as well. We're competing everywhere, and there are some great battles going on for sure. And we talked about it with the team today too, Colin. Just because your role is, we started scout team stuff today, so just because you may have been on the scout team today, that's your role right now. It doesn't mean it's going to be your role in November. It's our job as coaches, and I told the staff yesterday to continue to coach all 100, I think it's 19 guys that we have on this team right now. We have to get all 119 better and continue to develop, our entire roster, which is what we're trying to do. So wherever a guy is going into game 1, depth chart wise and all that, it would be a shame if every single player on this team doesn't improve as the year goes along.
Shane, is Jalen Foster back in an official capacity with y'all, or I guess what's that kind of looking like right now?
Yeah, he is. I'm not sure exactly what the title is and all that, but we've got a pretty good group of guys with, Jalen Dickerson obviously was medically DQ'd, but so Jalen's working with us from that standpoint, and Jalen Foster is here as well. I think technically, or not technically, but legally, I think the role he's not necessarily coaching, but he's involved with us and around the program and is an asset for sure for all the obvious reasons. And he's great with those young defensive backs and all the guys. We talked about it today. There's freshmen that may not play as much next Saturday night as what they wanted to and may end up redshirting. Who knows? Well, Jalen Foster redshirted here. Jalen Dickerson redshirted here. And that's if you're not quite ready to play right now, that's okay.
You said after the first scrimmage that the red zone was still an area of concern that you were just starting to install there. How do you feel like that's progressed now, a week and a half on from that, and now a week and a half from the first game?
Yeah, that took on a life of its own. I saw after that, I think every player that was in here got asked about the red zone last week as well. I mean, no, it's not. I mean, I said the red zone was a concern, but I should have prefaced, I think I did, but in that scrimmage on Saturday, 2 weeks or a week and a half ago, I think red zone we first did on Thursday, so it wasn't going to be sharp. Fine. I didn't have any concerns about the red zone after that first, scrimmage. It was more just we had to be more efficient and finish drives, and certainly we put a lot of emphasis on it. We work on it. Regardless of what happens down there, we need to come away with at least 3 points, but we're a big point of emphasis. We obviously want to score touchdowns down there, and defensively, you may the other night some situations where there's some big plays and long drives, and then you get down to the red zone from a defensive standpoint. You got to get a stop and force a field goal or force a turnover. So we're better and should be better after working on it more than what we did going into that first day as well. Our first scrimmage, I should say.
I wanted to ask you about Luke. Going back to last season until today, he just always seems so positive, and he's always preaching about brotherhood no matter what the situation with the quarterbacks is. How impressed are you with his constant mindset and positive attitude, and how infectious is it both on and off the field? Yeah, no, Luke's been great. What you see with him is what you get, and he's got a great mindset, great attitude. He and Marshawn Lloyd live together, and they're very much the same. I mean, they're focused, but they're positive guys. And Luke, I've said it before, has been fantastic for that quarterback room as well, but also the whole team. Just with his mindset, the way that he's handled some of the adversity he faced last year. The way that he's handled Spencer coming in this year, the way that he helps these young quarterbacks and Spencer. Luke's been fantastic, and he really has. He's really gotten better as a quarterback since last season as well, and he is one of the true leaders on this football team as well.
Hey Shane, is there a point in this time leading up to September 3rd where you would like to reach the point where you say, man, we're ready to play right now? Or is that against the mentality of a coach?
Good question. No, I think it's certainly you certainly when we walk off the practice field next Thursday, we better feel like we're as ready as we can possibly be to play that game. Now, we've got a lot of work to do, and even when you walk off that practice field on Thursday, we still have a walkthrough on Friday and walkthrough and meetings on Saturday. So you're always coaching right up until kickoff, but certainly there's a lot of things that we still have to cover between now and that first game, situationally wise and things like that, Rick. But you want to feel as confident as you possibly can, but honestly, as a coach, you never do, especially game ones, just because there's so many, things that you try and cover everything. And I feel like we are very thorough, but there's always, something. And you're always just trying to stay one step ahead and things like that. So first games are tricky because, like I've said before, we don't get preseason games and whatnot like the NFL teams do. We play for real, and it counts here in a week and a half. I better be a good one, Emily. It's your debut question.
No pressure. I know you had talked about after that first scrimmage that you guys were pushing Spencer to try and get that ball out quicker.
Yeah.
We had a lot of the players in here earlier talking about how you were kind of running the defense all over the field during the scrimmage this past weekend. How do you feel like that pace and speed of your offense has progressed since that first scrimmage?
Good, and I thought it was good the first scrimmage as well. And no matter what, regardless of what the players said, make no mistake about it, we haven't turned into like Ole Miss, and we're trying to run 115 plays next Saturday. We may be. You never know, Georgia State. But certainly the game, you've got to be able to play on the perimeter. In today's college football, you got to be able to make people miss in space. You've got to be able to tackle in space. And we had plenty of those plays, the other night. I think you guys last week, I'm not sure if you were out there, but I think the last day y'all were out there for practice, we did basically a perimeter blocking drill over there on that far field. Was the very last period you guys saw before you left, and that was basically that, blocking in space and tackling in space and getting off blocks and making people miss. So you got to do that nowadays in college football, and we spent a lot of time working at it, and
those plays in scrimmages may be by design. It may be, Spencer, for whatever reason, kicked the ball out there because the run wasn't good or whatever it may be. But he's getting the ball out very efficiently. Has a better understanding of what we're doing offensively. And also, too, with preseason practice, preseason camp, you're installing everything. And then as you get into closer to game week like we are now, you really start to narrow down, okay, these are the players that we're going to be playing with. These are the schemes we like this week. And because of that, you should see the mental errors for every position going down. The way the offense is operating, the speed they're operating with should go up because everybody should have more confidence and an understanding of what we're doing because we're not doing as much, if that makes sense.
No, Christian's obviously here for a reason, but I'm guessing you feel pretty good about having so many other guys within that running back room to help keep the depth, at a comfortable spot for you guys.
Yes. What was the first part I was looking for you?
Oh, yeah. I was just saying,
who here
I
for a
know
reason?
you guys you brought in Christian for a reason.
Oh, yeah.
And want him to be on the field, but
yes,
just the depth across the board at the running back.
Yeah, it's really good. And you go back to last year's team, Hale, and you talk about this year's team, I feel like there's more depth at every position on offense. And we lost two pretty good players in Saquandre and Kevin Harris, but we've added Christian Bill Smith. We've added Lavassier Carroll. DJ Twitty made some plays in the spring game, and Juju's a year older. Marshawn's a year older, so we certainly do like that group. Marshawn's had a great preseason. Juju's had an unbelievable preseason. Rashad Amos has had a good preseason. Lavassier has. All those guys have, so we certainly love Christian's maturity and leadership that he brings, being an older guy. And he's done a great job now that since he's been out of, still being involved. But those other guys have done a great job as well, and would love to have him next Saturday night. But we feel great about that room, even if he's not going.
Yeah, Coach, going off of that a little bit, what are some of the main differences you noticed from the offensive unit this season compared to where you guys were at this time last season? Of course, you were just talking about the running backs. You mentioned the receivers a second ago. Even some of the tight ends are new. So I don't know if it's the dynamic or style of play, but what kind of things do you notice about the offense that are different this year?
I think the biggest thing is just the overall understanding of what we're doing and being able to go out there and be efficient and operate. Last year at this time, it was still very new for these guys. We had been through spring practice in the summertime, but it was still a new system, and we had and whatnot. This year, it's year 2 in this system. We've been able to tweak some things to better fit our personnel because we have a better understanding of our personnel. Our players have on offense and defense and special teams have a better understanding of us as coaches. So that's the biggest thing I see is just there's not as many with the returning players, at least. The freshmen, they're going to make mistakes. But with the returning guys, they know how to get lined up, and they don't just know necessarily their position. They know they have a better understanding of the whole play, the whole concept. So Jaheim Bell last year probably could line up at tight end and know what the tight end does. Now we want to be so multiple in personnel, but that Jaheim, for example, could line up at running back, tight end, receiver, and know what to do on the same play. And I don't know if that would have been the case last year. So there's just a better overall understanding, I think, of what we're doing.
What was your reaction to the Manning Award watch list that came out yesterday and no Spencer Rattler on there?
I did not see that, so I had no reaction. So that's the first I'm hearing of it. I don't know. It's like I tell our players that, the better teams have the individual award winners, and if we just go out this year and have the year that we think we can have and develop as a football team, it'll be a great year for us as a team and a great year for guys as individuals as well. How many people are on that watch list? I'd say if somebody thinks that he's not one of the 30 best quarterbacks in the country, they've lost their minds, in my opinion, but that's just me. He was to say he was on that list last year, I would imagine, right? Well, I don't think the guy's gotten worse as a quarterback since last year. So I don't do I need to get back on my Parker White kick from last year as well, because it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I did not know that, Phil, but that's crazy.
Hey, Shane, you probably don't think you've gotten worse as a head coach in the last year, but,
Thank you, Gene. Some people may. I don't know.
From your first year to your second year, from a year ago this week, what are the key areas do you think you've improved as a head coach?
Probably, kind of like I've mentioned before, just an understanding of, okay, here's what, being able to look back at last year and maybe mistakes that I made in practice or things like that. For example, this press conference last year on this exact same date, I think I was in here having to address the famous milk crate challenge that our guys had done over the weekend on their day off. Well, Saturday night, I could talk to the team and say, hey, just make sure we're good here over these next couple of days. Here's what happened last year on this weekend. We had the milk crate challenge saga. We had a couple other issues off the field, nothing illegal, but just some things that happened, and didn't have a great Tuesday practice coming off 2 off days. So we were able to challenge them. All right, this is what happened last year. Let's be more mature and let's be better as a team, during this day off, and come back on Tuesday morning and have a good practice this year, which we didn't really have, in my opinion. It was kind of sluggish last year on this day. So being able to look back at that, having a better understanding, Gene, of the players on our team. They know me better. I know them better. Last year in this tight press conference, we had never been through a loss together as a team. They didn't know how I would react and how I was in the locker room, all that stuff. So I think there's just a better understanding. I don't know if you're ever comfortable. I don't want to get comfortable. You see the words around this building sometimes here says resist comfort. Like, we don't want to get comfortable ever. So you're always trying to grow and learn. But just probably that, just a better understanding of the job and everything that it entails, the people around me, players and coaches. But you are always learning, and then just things last year, mistakes in games that, you're always going to have plays or calls you wish you could have back, and being able to just, okay, I've got a year under my belt. You were an idiot, Shane, for doing that against so-and-so, or that wasn't very smart to do that, and just knowing the team better and more just confident in the people around me.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned earlier the position battle you got going on at safety. Can you kind of talk me through what you're seeing from Devani and RJ, and then also what you've seen from Darius Rush?
Yeah. Devani and RJ have been great. RJ's really playing fast, really playing physical. He is on a good trajectory right now, raising his game. Devani has come in and really worked to put himself in position to play, which he has. I think he's been very solid, very mature. Those are 2 physical players back there, and they're replacing a really good player in Jalen Foster. But those 2 guys are smart, physical, what you want back there at that position. And Darius has been fantastic. Darius is, just kind of goes about his business and just continually makes plays. He's what you're looking for from a size and speed and athleticism standpoint out there on the perimeter, and really like all those 3 guys, and Cam Smith and what he's doing, and David Spalding and Marcellus Dial and some of these freshmen that we have in there as well. It's a good group back there that I'm excited to watch continue to develop this season.
Yeah, and then my second question was about the offensive line group. I know Zach Pickens was in here earlier talking about how he was so impressed at how together they work. Just talk me through that and what you've seen with Coach Adkins.
Yeah, no, and they should be, because they all come back. They all came back from last year's team. They've played a lot of football together. It's an older group, and I would say the same about the defensive line as well. Just with guys like Zach and MJ Webb and Boogie Huntley and Tonka and those guys on the defensive line, they've played a lot of football together. So those are 2 positions that. I said it last year that I thought we had a chance to be a good team because we were good on the line of scrimmage, and I feel the same way this year. Those guys come back; they're a year older. Goes back to the first question too about just being more confident in the system. Eric Douglas and making the calls at center, and the other offensive linemen, they have a better understanding of what we're trying to get done, and there's great communication between them and Coach Atkins and Coach Satt and the rest of the coaching staff, and been pleased with those guys as well. And they're a tough rugged group. After spring practice, talked about how those offensive linemen, they didn't miss a single practice all preseason or all of spring practice, and I don't think anybody has this preseason either. Same thing with the D-line. I mean, they just come out there, knock on wood, they just come out there and work, and love that about them, both sides of the ball.
I know you said you had everybody back right now except for Kai Kroger and Christian Beal-Smith, but what's the status with Sherrod Green? We saw him out of a practice. We know he's had obviously some injury problems the last 2 years. Is there any update on him?
No, he practiced today. He's been good. He's has practiced, and obviously we're just trying to be smart with him coming off an injury, and Sherrod's played a lot of football in his career as well. So like anybody, he's got bumps and bruises right now after 3 weeks of practice. But he's had a good preseason, and he and Mo Kaba and Brad Johnson and Debo Williams have done a really good job. Those 4 guys at that linebacker position coming off spring practice, and then helping these other guys, these young linebackers as well.
Shane, the athletic department's really trying to involve young alumni and have young alumni at these games. How important is that for this program to have a lot of the recent graduates coming to these games and making an impact? Yeah, huge. It's the next generation, and we want to continue to bring generations upon generations of people, here. And so many of those Gamecock Clubs events that I went to in the springtime, it would seems like everyone I'd have a conversation with someone that said, I've been coming since I was little with my parents, and then they came with their parents, and these young alumni, they love this place. They create a great home field advantage like the rest of our fan base does in Williams-Brice Stadium. But, we want this young alumni group to continue to come and feel at home here. And then as they grow older and have children, that they bring their children and continue to make this just an amazing place to be on Saturdays, which it is.
A couple questions. Marshawn obviously was out for that first scrimmage, and we saw him seem like he was a little more ahead than Christian was. So what's the latest with him? What can you share about his status?
He's fine. He is a little bit more ahead than Christian. No concerns on Marshawn. He practiced today. He's, playing running back, playing some special team stuff out there. He's fine.
And with the specialist kicker, punter, and all that, what can you share about where those position battles are at? With
it's good. They're competing. They really are. The at the punter job, those guys, Herrera and William Joyce and Jeter, they've all stepped in and gotten some great work at punter and shown that they can kick or punt at this level. They've done a great job. They really have. Place kicker was Herrera and Jeter. It's back to back or back and forth. I mean, we try and put those guys in as many pressure situations as we can, and whether it be just them kicking on air with the team completely surrounding them and screaming in their faces like we did the other night in the stadium, or pressure kicks in practice where if they make both kicks, we're not running extra or any of that stuff. They've responded. So regardless of what happens health-wise with Kai and then the competition at the other positions, those are 2 positions that I'm not concerned about going into the first game, no matter who's out there.
Shane, Pat DiMarco moving into kind of a new-ish role, I guess, within athletics and with football. I guess just what does that kind of do? And I guess I know it's kind of an evolving thing, but I guess what does that kind of do for this program, and how can that kind of help things in this sort of era?
Yeah, it's a great asset. Pat, when we hired Pat, that was one thing that when we hired him, he was interested in the coaching aspect of it, but he was also interested in the player development part of it. And he and I talked. I told him, I said, I think you can be really beneficial and from a NIL standpoint going forward, because here's a guy that played double-digit years in the NFL and was I believe the president of the NFLPA, if I'm not mistaken, there, and was involved with that, Pro Bowler, all that stuff. So he's got a great background that our guys can relate to, and he knows a lot of people around here. So that was something that we initially talked about when I hired him, and now that he's transitioned away from coaching and more into that role, he'll be, fantastic, and just another avenue for our players to utilize, and another great example of our athletic department and what Coach Tanner and Chance Miller and Hillary Cox and all of them are doing from an NIL standpoint, that we're not sitting back and just waiting for stuff to happen. We're trying to, be on the forefront and really put ourselves in position to help our student athletes here at Carolina.
Okay, as we're heading into game one, what have been the biggest surprises for you of this camp, whether that's, players, systems that have worked, things you've seen in scrimmages, things like that?
I would say, just thinking through positions right now, pleased with the development. I don't know if it's necessarily a surprise, but certainly pleased with the development. I mentioned it after the first scrimmage of Nick Emenwari and DQ Smith, just two guys that really hadn't played the safety position in high school, that have really done a nice job of settling into that role. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about those two guys. Nobody's saying that they're going to be Ronnie Lott or Ed Reed here in game one, but they've really done a nice job adjusting to that position, because it wasn't a position that they were really playing in high school. So that's been a pleasant development, I should say, as well. And then really it's not a surprise knowing this group, but it's just a group that loves to practice. They really do. And they love to work, and they don't complain and moan. They just go out every day and like to practice. They really do. And that's been really fun. And it's really nice to see the leadership from within the team just continue to develop.
Last question is John. Yeah, I was going to ask you about Nick and Manwari. Basically, all the coaches and players have come in here raving about this guy. Do you worry about it getting to his head a little bit, but also in kind of the same line, is he a guy who you can envision developing enough to potentially be a starter this year?
I think we'll see how his development continues to go, but he's got all the tools. He's got size. He's smart. He's athletic. He can run. He's physical. He's got an edge about him. He's really been impressive. And, he's a guy that came to our football camp last summer, and I don't think had any really offers when he came. He may have, but he didn't have anything big when he came to our camp, and was just so impressive in camp. And we loved our evaluation of him, and we offered him a scholarship, and he's come in and done a really nice job. I mean, Devani and RJ at safety are two really solid players, but Nick's a guy that certainly put himself in position to help our team this year. And again, some of these freshmen, that they don't like their numbers right now, what they're wearing jersey wise, and they're trying to get better numbers. And it's like I told a couple of them this morning, like, you haven't played a game yet. So we're not changing your jersey number because you've had 15 good practices. Like, I'm really happy about that, but let's see what happens when the lights come on and all that. So by no means has anyone on our team arrived. There's a lot of work to do, but certainly Nick and a lot of our other freshmen, I really like this class, have opened up some eyes this preseason in regards to their potential, and they got a lot of work to do as well. They're still making mistakes like we all are, but we're just trying to coach them really hard, and we'll see how they continue to develop as the season goes on. All right, thank you, Coach. All right, thank you all. Have a great Tuesday.